I went to a swap meet last weekend and I picked up these side pipes. They're like an oval side pipe. Comment down below what you guys think. I don't really care how we run the exhaust, so I'll leave it up to you guys in the comments below. Max PD Rods actually sent us 2 GT45 turbos. The fuel system is officially done. All right, the new turbos are in and they look much better than the other ones. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Rustomod. We're back again on the 1976 Buick Skylark. So, if you guys missed the last few episodes, I'll give you the rundown on the history of this Buick here. We actually found this car in a junkyard. We snagged this thing for 200 bucks. We actually got the thing running, driving, but it actually caught on fire. So we wanted a budget-friendly car that we could thrash around on the channel and do some cool stuff with. So we decided, why not put an LS in it? So we actually got a Silverado for a few hundred bucks. We ended up parting the whole thing out, and we got the motor from the Silverado. Now we actually paid ourselves back with the motor, so we parted the truck out and used the money from the truck to make our LS pretty cool. So we actually put valve springs, we put a cam in it, and we did a bunch of upgrades to it. And then we decided, why not turbo this thing? So we actually turboed this thing in a previous episode, and we're going to try to finish this thing up. On the last episode, you saw us do half of the fuel system, try to figure out where we're mounting our fuel cell and a bunch of other stuff. So we got a lot of work to do on this episode to get this thing wrapped up. So let's get to it. So on the last episode, we actually ran our fuel cell that's in the trunk, and we actually ran the fuel lines all the way up to where the fuel lines get to the engine. But I kind of stopped because I'm waiting on some parts, and I got all those parts in that I've been waiting for, so we can continue on this thing. So I ran out of fuel line last time, but I got some new fuel line from Evil Energy. Check them out in the link in the description. Those guys helped me out with all the fuel line in this thing, and they're a budget-friendly option to do kind of a budget-friendly turbo project like we're doing here. So go check them out, but they supplied us with a bunch of stuff for this thing. So I got a new fuel line, I got a new fuel pressure regulator from them. I also got the transmission cooler lines and the turbo feed lines and a bunch of stuff for this thing, so that way we can knock out all the lines that we have to do on this project. Other thing I picked up on eBay for pretty cheap was this block-off plate for our air conditioning and our heater. So I'm gonna actually pull all that stuff out, and then I'm gonna put this plate in there, and then we can mount all of our fuel pressure stuff on this plate. It'll be nice, clean look, and we have a place to mount all of the stuff that we have to run from the back of the car to the front of the car. Max PD Rods actually sent us 2 GT45 turbos. Now, I know you guys are wondering, well, what are the turbos that are actually in there? And these turbos I just had laying around for mock-up. So this one actually is way too small and it's locked up, and this one is even smaller and it's not locked up. So these ones are actually not the turbos that are gonna go on here. We actually have these 2 GT45 turbos from Max PD Rods that are gonna go on this thing. Now, this turbo is actually originally on our F250Y block that we did, where we just threw a turbo on it to see how it would do. It actually worked pretty good, so I snagged one off that, and then they sent me a matching one, so that way we can have matching turbos on this thing and we'll be good to go. So go check out Max PD Rods for a budget turbo setup. I actually got all these fittings and stuff from them with the kit, so it worked pretty well. We have the feed and the drains and everything like that. So we got to run our turbo feed and drains, so I picked up some dash 10 AN line so we can make the lines for that. So since we can button up all the turbo stuff and it actually can be permanent, I got some exhaust manifold gaskets and stuff. But one last thing that I did get for this was a shifter. So this is a low car shifter I picked up pretty cheap, and you can actually put this on the steering column, and then that way I can still use the original shifter with the Turbo 400. So figured that would be pretty easy to slap in while it's up on the lift also, so we can knock that stuff out as well. So let's get to work on this thing. I have to paint that stuff, let it dry, and then I could finish putting the fuel lines in and we can start getting to work. Also, comment down below. I went to a swap meet last weekend and I picked up these side pipes. They're like an oval side pipe. Let me know if you guys like this look on this thing. I'm kind of torn because not that the car really matters aesthetically, but I think the side pipes would be kind of a cool look for it if we have the 2 turbos coming down and just connected to the side pipe. We also have those Evil Energy exhaust cutouts if we want it really loud or something. We could run that to the side pipe and then add some mufflers to it. Comment down below what you guys think. I don't really care how we run the exhaust, so I'll leave it up to you guys in the comments below. How should we run the exhaust on the Buick? Do we do side pipes? Do we do out the hood? Do we do a full exhaust out the back? Let me know. I'll do whatever you guys say. So put it down in the comments and we'll get to work on this thing. You guys remember the last episode, we put this fuel cell in here and we ran our feed line all the way up to the front of the car. So now I'm just gonna run our return line all the way up to the front of the car. Same thing, not really a big change, and then run that straight up to the motor, and then we can figure out what we're gonna do with our firewall. But first I'm gonna paint these pieces that need to be painted. This is our radiator mount that we made, and then our firewall plate that we're gonna paint also. So gonna throw some paint on these real quick. Once they dry, I'll put them on, but in the meantime, we'll put our fuel system together, and then we can start buttoning this thing up.
If you guys want to see how to do the AN lines, go check out the last video. I put up a whole video basically how we put them together. Pretty good information there if you guys are doing a budget swap with a bunch of AN lines. One thing that's pretty handy about the Evil Energy fuel lines is these little clips. So when we're running our return line, pretty easy. You just go right in place of the feed line and then you can run these clips together, boom, and then run it straight back. So we got it pretty much ran all the way up to the front. Just gotta throw these on and then we should be done underneath here. All right, got our fuel line ran. Basically we're the same spot as the feed line. So we got these little clips in here and we're running it straight up to the engine bay. So now we can go ahead and figure out our fuel pressure regulator and all that kind of stuff. But before I do that, I want to actually put our block here for our turbo feeds and stuff like that. And then we also have to try to figure out this shifter. So this is the stock shifter. With the Turbo 400, it doesn't really line up where the original Turbo 350 went. So I got that low car one. I'm gonna try to put that on here and see how that all lines up and everything. So gonna try to throw that on real quick and see how that works. So this is what I'm gonna use for the turbo feed. I got this, I think, on Amazon. I know Motion Raceworks sells one. I got this for the Turbo LSC10, but I actually ended up running the turbo feed off of a different port on the motor because I went to an oil cooler here. Might want to upgrade this to an oil cooler eventually. It does get really hot when you start boosting this thing. But for now, we're just gonna run this because I got it. And we can slap this on here and then we can go ahead and run the lines straight up to the engine. All right, so if you can see the transmission here, I kind of figured out how this thing works. So basically there's a bracket that goes onto the steering column here, and that has a cable that comes down to the transmission just like a normal aftermarket shifter. So we're gonna have to take these bolts out and then put up our bracket here for the cable that goes to the transmission. I think I'm missing this bolt that goes to the shifter, so I'm gonna have to rob that off of another transmission. Then going to put this bracket up here, run the cable up here, and then it has this that actually goes onto the column itself, and then it uses this bracket to bolt onto where the shifter would go. So basically this will rotate and then it'll line up with the shifter cable here. So going to try to figure out how this whole thing gets put together, and then once I put it together, I'll show you guys what I did. All right, let me show you guys what's going on here. So if I didn't pull this fender out, I probably wouldn't be able to get the shifter on, but this shifter basically goes around the column here, but the actual shifter cable bolts to this aluminum piece here, and then this bolts around the column, And then if you can see on the other side here, there's the stock shifter. So this piece actually goes around that stock shifter and then goes to this cable here. And then whenever you move the shifter, it moves the cable. But we're actually gonna have to drill some holes in that stock shifter tab so that way we can bolt this thing on. Do that, and then we have to bolt this aluminum piece on, and then we should be good. But it's just really tight because it's right up against the firewall here for that bracket, and they say it's a universal kit, and those universal things are really hard to get on. So that's basically it. This bracket rotates, it has the mount down there, and the shifter cable is right there. So it's pretty simple. It's just kind of a pain to install because like the booster's right above it, and it's just tight to get in there. I actually had to take the header out to be able to drill the holes for the bracket to go on, but it worked out pretty well, so that'll be nice. We can use our stock shifter column and have an upgraded shifter, so that works out pretty good. It's in park. I'm still missing the nut for the transmission on the bottom, but I'll have to get one of those and then we can actually see if it works. So I have this universal kit where we can run these AN lines to adapt the Turbo 400 cooler lines to AN lines. So I'm gonna throw this on real quick, and then we should be pretty much wrapped up with the lines for underneath. Trans lines are running up to the front pretty good. It also has the same kind of clips for the fuel line, so make it nice and neat. So now that we got the trans lines done, the shifter, I gotta hook that bolt up and that'll be done. We should be pretty good for the lines and everything on underneath the car. So let's lower it down and hook everything up in the engine bay. For our radiator lines, the kit came with these 90s I'm gonna run. And then we have our transmission cooler lines coming up. Just go in like that. Same thing on the bottom. Transmission cooler lines will be done. We also have our newly painted radiator mount. I'll throw back in here real quick. And then I gotta start pulling out all the air conditioning stuff so that way we can put our block off plate over there in. Then we can mount all the fuel lines and stuff like that. I don't want to touch that nice part that we just painted with my greasy hands here. I got these Sweet Patina TKO hand cleaning wipes, and these things are lifesavers. I don't have a sink out here in my shop. I don't want to run in my house. These things are awesome. They're quick. I keep one in every car. If I'm ever working on it, always use these things. If you guys want some, use this code right here, and I'll put a link in the description, and you guys can get some money off on your order. But definitely go check them out. Sweet Patina sells a bunch of stuff like this and awesome car care products as well. Definitely go check out Sweet Patina. All right, got our radiator mount put in here. I really like the way that this paint looks. It's just like a gunmetal gray kind of deal, but it cleans it up really good. Got our transmission cooler lines in there, and we have our turbo lines and our fuel lines. So I won't bore you guys. I'm gonna just yank this air conditioning stuff out real quick. Then we can put our panel up there and work on our engine fuel system. All right, I got the heater core out, but unfortunately the fan is tucked way back in there. And it looks like the easiest way to get it out is just to remove this fender liner. I did it on this side. I was trying to fit the exhaust. Probably could keep it on this side, I'm not really sure, but just for ease, I'm gonna just pull this thing out real quick, and then we should be able to pull that out and give us a lot more room in the engine bay. So I got the fan out, I got the heater stuff out, I got all the stuff cleaned up so that way we can get to everything. We got the fender liner pulled out. So we have a lot more room in the engine bay just with all that stuff removed. So now we can go ahead and put in our delete plate here. So this thing is just gonna go right in place and cover all that stuff up. Then we can mount all the fuel regulator and everything else to that. So I got the panel on there. Looks pretty good.
So now we can go ahead and mount our fuel pressure regulator and everything onto that panel. Cleans up the engine bay and gives you a lot more room to mess with exhaust and everything else we got to do in here. The fuel system is officially done. So we have our feed line coming through, and then we have our return going to our regulator and then straight down to the tank. Probably the best way I could see to run it right now. We have very simple setup. All the lines are pretty much the same. And if we have any problems, we can always upgrade it later. It's super easy to make the AN lines. But that's how we're gonna do it with our fuel system. So that's finally done. I'm gonna try to put in the new turbos, just see what they look like. They're a little bit bigger than the ones that were in here. That way we can get an idea and really start nailing down the exhaust side of this thing, because that's gonna be the next big project on this. All right, the new turbos are in and they look much better than the other ones. They actually spin and they'll actually make boost. So I think this is gonna be the best setup for this thing. The GT45 for max speeding rods, if you guys are interested in this, I'll link it down in the description below. I've used it before on the F250Y block, so why not use it on this too? Now, I do have a snag with the turbo feed lines. This one is just a little short. It would be really tight for me to go there, but I kind of want to run a 90 fitting there anyway. Same with this one. I'm not really cool with that sticking straight up, especially with the hood clearance. So gonna run a 90 on both of those, but I am hitting a snag because I'm missing the mounting studs for the turbos, and I just have these small bolts in there and they're kind of wiggling all over the place. I think I'm actually gonna wait on doing the lines that go down for the drains, because I still got to get these wastegate stuff done, and that's going to be on the next episode. Gonna finally put the wastegates in. Once I get those in, I'll finally be able to run everything on the front. I can finalize our power steering, I can finalize the balancer, I can run all the coolant lines, and I can put our belt on and finally put our charge pipe on. So I'm gonna wait, because I feel like as soon as I make that, it's gonna be right where I want to put the wastegate. So I'm just gonna be smart and hold off for now. But I have all the stuff for the wastegate coming, so you'll see that in the next episode. But that's gonna do it for this episode, guys. We got a ton done on the Buick today. We got our shifter in, we got basically all the lines ran, and we got our new turbos in there. So I'm really happy with the progress that we're making on this thing. It's just gonna be a little bit longer, and then we can finally fire this thing up and see how this thing sounds. So I'm really excited to get this car done, and we can move on to some other projects that we have on the channel. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the projects that we have here on Rustomod. And thanks for watching, guys. See you guys on the next episode.